1265. A fortress hidden among the mountains, a stone silhouette rising through the mist. One of the most mysterious structures in history, a name that inspired both fear and admiration for centuries. Alamut. As the Dalamite ruler Wasudan ibn Marzuban wandered through the steep cliffs of the Elborz Mountains, he noticed the strange behavior of an eagle. The eagle circled above a large rocky outcrop, gliding repeatedly and guiding the hunter toward that precise point. This event gave birth to the first legend of the fortress, from the Persian Aloh Amut, the eagle's teaching. And upon this very rock, one of the most impregnable fortresses in history would be built. Constructed on a rocky peak, reaching it was extremely difficult. Situated nearly 2,000 meters above sea level, accessible by a single narrow path. The fortress stretched roughly 180 meters long and 40 meters wide on a thin ridge. For centuries, Alamut remained a typical mountain fortress under local rulers. Its steep roads, nearly vertical slopes, and single entrance made it a natural defensive marvel. But this stone structure had yet to fulfill its true destiny. By the year 1090, a new figure would step onto the stage of history, Hassan Sabbah. Political genius, mastery of philosophy and mathematics, skill in logic and strategy, and a secret organization known as the Dawat. Hassan Sabbah approached Alamut not with the sword, but with intellect and patience. For months, he influenced the people of the region, built relationships with the fortress commander, and gathered supporters from within. And then the day came. Without bloodshed, without a single arrow being fired, the rule of Alamut passed entirely into the hands of Hassan Sabbah. This was a form of conquest rarely seen in history. With Hassan Sabbah's leadership, Alamut ceased to be an ordinary mountain fortress. It became the heart of an ideology, a belief system, and an invisible empire. One of the most remarkable features of the fortress was its advanced academic center: mathematics, astronomy, logic, philosophy. Inside the fortress stood a grand library. This treasure of knowledge became the foundation of a legend that would last for centuries. The most feared element of Alamut, however, was its fida'is, the assassins. These assassins were silent shadows who carried out missions at the cost of their lives. Absolute loyalty, close-range infiltration techniques, swift killing with daggers, psychological warfare, hit-and-run tactics. Enemy rulers would tremble at the mere mention of Alamut's assassins. Alamut was not only a military base, it was a self-sustaining microstate. Terraced agricultural lands, interconnected storage areas, water cisterns, hidden passages carved into the rock, emergency escape tunnels. It was designed to survive for months, even if completely cut off from the outside world. For centuries, kings, sultans, crusader commanders, even caliphs shuddered when they heard the name Alamut. Because Alamut was not just a fortress, it was the command center of a shadow army. Assassinations, intelligence operations, secret networks, everything began and ended in these mountains. But by 1256, one of the most ruthless rulers in history set his sights on the fortress, Hulagu Khan. He had been tasked with conquering Iran, under one condition: Baghdad will not be approached until Alamut falls. For the Mongols feared the assassination capabilities and intelligence network of the Nizari Ismailis, the Hashashin. Alamut was not merely a fortress. It was the heart of a faith. It was the center of a sect. The Hashashins' rumors of the Garden of Paradise originated here. Perched atop the Iranian mountains, carved into the rocks, it was an almost inaccessible refuge. The castle's leader was no longer Hassan Sabah, but Sabah's spirit. It could still be felt in the very stones of the castle. 1256. The deadliest army in the world was marching westward, melting the place where the sun rose with fire and steel. At its head was a ruler who would leave not a single structure standing that cast a shadow over his empire. Hulagu Khan. Hulagu's order was clear: destroy that snake's nest in the mountains. The Mongol siege tactics were ruthless. For them, war was not an art, it was a procedure. Whatever was necessary was done. One of the most terrifying legends is this: the Mongols would catapult plague-ridden and diseased people into enemy castles. This tactic created panic among the enemy, increased fear of epidemics, and triggered a collapse in morale. The details are debated among historians, but it is certain that the Mongols were ruthless in their psychological warfare. When the Mongol army entered the valley, Alamut stood tall before them, hundreds of meters high, walls leaning against the precipice, a single entrance and narrow stairways. This castle could not be taken by conventional siege techniques. According to a legend recounted in some chronicles, the Mongols dug tunnels beneath Alamut. Their aim was to reach the castle's foundations, weaken the supporting ground, fill it with combustible material, and cause it to collapse. Tunnel digging was one of the oldest and most effective methods of siege warfare in the Middle Ages. To undermine a castle, to destroy it from within. The assassins were masters not only of assassination, but also of defense. Using the natural caves and secret passages within the rocky terrain, they tracked the Mongols' every move. A deathly silence reigned in Alamut, but this silence concealed the approaching storm. Outside the castle, the Mongols were carrying out serious work across a wide area. The difficulties were not insurmountable for them. They were confident that their efforts would ultimately be successful, for they possessed countless stories of their achievements and legends. The Mongols set up enormous catapults at the bottom of the valley. Flaming stones, oil-filled jars, combustible materials. The preparations were complete. Everything was going according to plan. They checked their work repeatedly, without overlooking a single detail. And now it was time to move. The sky was transformed into a veritable rain of fire. And that great scene. The Mongols filled the tunnel with logs, bundles of flax, and barrels full of oil. The tunnel was set alight. The flames turned the ground beneath into a crimson hell. The earth shook, smoke rose to the sky. The base of the castle began to crack. The upper structure swayed, and history was about to witness the collapse of a castle once deemed invincible. As the castle's foundations weakened, the Mongols' catapults became even more destructive. After a day of fierce attack, some of Alamut's outer sections collapsed. The castle's leader was forced to surrender. He knelt before Hulagu. There was nothing left to do. It was either death or surrender. The most mysterious castle in history fell silent for the first time in centuries. When the Mongol soldiers entered the castle, they were met with a surprising sight. Cisterns, secret tunnels, laboratories, libraries, each had been meticulously prepared and had been the site of years of work. The impact of this lasted for centuries across the region. Alamut was not merely a castle. It was the center of a thought, an ideology. With the fall of Alamut, legends multiplied. The Hashashins' Garden of Paradise myths of their assassins being drugged and trained, the immortal voice of the mysterious leader Hassan Sabah. These tales continue to fuel people's imaginations for centuries. Hulagu Khan crushed the resistance in central Iran with the fall of Alamut. Now it was Baghdad's turn. And this was only the beginning. Hulagu Khan wasted no time in developing new strategies for Baghdad. He knew very well that thought and strategy were far more important than the sword. Alamut, a name that has stood between reality and fantasy for 1,000 years. Some call it the Fortress of Shadows. Others call it the Nest of Death. But one thing is certain. It was a center of intellect, discipline, and faith that stood firm for centuries, even against the Mongols. History is not written with stones, but with the stories of the people behind them. And Alamut's story continues to live on, even in ruins.